Hey all, it's Mitch from Pencil Kings, and today I'm going to be doing the voiceover for this great tutorial from Giovanni Kosowski, an artist out of Brazil. He's a colorist for Marvel Comics, and in a previous lesson we went over with Giovanni how to draw this caricature of Hugh Jackman, and so in today's lesson we're going to go all into doing the actual painting. Now right here at the beginning he's just showing that he did make some slight modifications for the size of the nose as well as the placement of the eyes from the last tutorial. So there's, if you've been following along from that one to this one, it is slightly different. So to start off, what he's going to do is enlarge his canvas. So right here he's checking the resolution and he's changed it to 3000, and just to get 3000 dots per inch is a good resolution to use for painting. If you're going to print something out. So that's what he went ahead and did, so that his image size, he'll have the capability to print. When you're working on stuff, Photoshop generally puts it to 72 dpi, and you definitely want to up that to 300 if you think you're going to print something. So to start off, he's just cropping it a little bit. There you can see he's knocked off just a hair, or just a little bit on the left hand side. Now we're going to go into layer setup. So he's duplicated the background layer, locked it, and the reason for doing that is that you don't want to accidentally paint over something while you're working. So locking your work will always give you the opportunity to go back. It doesn't happen very often the more you get familiar with Photoshop, but occasionally you will want to go back and rework something. So he duplicated that, set the layer above to multiply, and now he's creating another layer called I believe it's called base, and this is just going to be the base color for the backdrop so that it's not so stark white. You can see he's put a slightly tinted gray tone in there. Then he's going to go in and create layers for the base color of the face and then the base color of the hair. And now he's colorizing the line work with a reddish orange, kind of like a skin tone color. If you'll remember from some of his other tutorials, he really likes using this technique, and I think it's a great technique because it just makes your drawing a lot more lively when the line work isn't straight black. You want to try and avoid using black as much as possible. Of course that depends on the work you're doing, but generally speaking when you're doing a painting you want to avoid true 100% black. It's just not a very interesting color. And when you print things out as well, if you can add a little bit of color to your blacks, it's gonna just give it a nice little tint. Very, very subtle effect, but that's the difference between being an amateur and a professional. So here's he's showing that he's just going to use again one of the basic brushes in Photoshop. Nothing, there's no special or amazing brush technique here. And he set that layer above with the line work to multiply, so that when he's coloring underneath, that line work over top is going to show through. And now this is the base layer, so he's just grabbing a large brush and coloring everything in with a basic skin tone. You'll see he often goes to the color palette in this tutorial and just changes the color up on the fly, and then once he gets a good color base down, he's going to be using the color picker, which if you're unfamiliar with Photoshop, it's just holding down the Alt key when you're using your brush, and that'll let you pick any color on the canvas that you're working on and then start painting with that color. Just creating another layer here for hair, and what he's doing when he creates these is that he's locking the position. So I think he's going to do this right now, but he's going to show, he's going to show how if say you're zoomed in a lot on something, you might accidentally select the move tool, and then you can move your color out of the area and it's just going to give you not a very nice result. So you want to make sure that you lock your layer's position, and so that you'll never be able to accidentally move them. Just a handy little trick you can use. I think now it's going to start to lay in some of that basic color, and you'll see him often going up here to the color palette. Just one quick note, this tutorial we've sped it up a little bit because it does go into a lot of it's just painting detail. So it's sped up about 50%. So if it looks like he's going really fast through some of this stuff, it's actually because there's been a little bit of time scaling done, and that's just so that you can still get a good sense of what he's doing and also not take up too much of your time. So here he's adjusted the brush properties to reduce the flow and also add transfer. And what that's going to do is give a little bit more of a brush stroke feeling to the work that he's doing. See the colors starting to go in now in this slightly reddish tone. And the reference picture is always there on the left hand side while he's working so that he can take visual cues from that. But you don't want to copy it exactly. I mean, like, you could go and you could pick your colors right from the photo, but as you develop as a painter, it's better to start picking the colors for yourself and making your own artistic choices, because you definitely do want to leave your mark on the work that you're doing. And just choosing your own colors and going through all this stuff yourself is going to help you develop as an artist. So avoid the temptation to grab those colors from the photo. If you're just starting out and you want to do that, I think that's totally fine. But as you continue to develop as an artist, then you'll be wanting to just to do more, to have more control over your work and to make more of those choices without using the aid of photos and things like that. So you can see some of the highlights have started to be laid in, and just looking at the reference again, you can see that there's highlights, or there's lighter skin tones around the eyes, on the lower lip there, as well as on the upper lip. There's a tight highlight on the end of the nose, on the Adam's apple, and then the ear again also has lighter skin tone. I'm going to try and keep a cool color scheme here and add in a little bit of purple for the shadows. Very light purple. Now we're getting some of that highlight onto the cheek. And you'll notice that as he's working, like many of the other tutorials that we have, he works in an overall fashion, so he's not going in and getting too detailed in one area. He's approaching it kind of holistically. I'm just gonna save it out now. Always a good idea to save. When I'm personally saving my work, I save it incrementally, so I'll put a number on the end of whatever files that I'm working with. So I'll put an underscore, and then maybe like a 001 to start with, my first one, and then a 002, just so I have a history of the files that if I ever needed to go back to a later, or an earlier stage rather, then that option is always there for you. And you can always just delete those files later, but if you don't create them along the way, then you won't have that option. So for the eyes, you don't want to use a total white for the whites of the eyes. You want to use a slight gray tone, and that will give you room for adding highlights later on, just because you're not starting from that pure white point. And just like using pure black, you want to also avoid using pure white in your work. It's just a color that doesn't occur very very commonly in real life. Colors are usually tinted, slightly in one way or another. If you think of pure white as maybe if you look directly into the sun, and I don't recommend that you do that for very long, but just a quick look is alright, then that's where you get a really bright, true white. And if you compare that, the brightness of the sun, to the tones of the face, you'll quickly realize that there's very few areas of the face where you would have that intense of a light color. So it's starting to come along now, and again, it's just all about little subtle changes in paint color and details. And when you're working on a large area, then of course you can use a larger brush stroke, and as things get more detailed, then you'll want to bring in those finer, smaller brushes. Like, for example, when you're working around the eyes like he's doing right now, a smaller brush is going to be a lot more helpful. And in the eyes here is a little bit less colorful, so he's added or decreased the saturation of the color. And the saturation, if you're new to this, is just how much color is actually in a color. The less saturation, the closer you get to gray. So now with a base on the skin, we're going to start to go into the hair coloring in the next lesson. And you'll see him start that right now, and we'll be right back with the hair for this.